made by the Border Management Authority, whose earlier outlined steps that they're taking to tighten security at South Africa's 71 ports of entry as the festive season travel rush gets underway. And Veronica Makhoali is there and is a part of that briefing. Veronica, hi again. We heard from BMA, the BMA's Dr. Masi Piatto about some of the strategic plans that they have. They've increased the operating times at some of those border gates, but they've also issued some warnings for people in terms of what's allowable for being brought into South Africa, things that you can't bring without a permit. Maybe just recap some of the highlights that were shared earlier on.
Well, certainly, man. In fact, what we heard today coming out from the Border Management Authority is almost a no-nonsense approach in regards to how the festive season travelling will be happening between South Africa's 71 ports of entry. The BMA says, in fact, that they are waiting or anticipating an influx of travellers of more than 6 million that will be coming across South Africa's borders, of course, between the period of December and January, as we know as the festive season. Very crucial to their measures to, of course, welcome these many travellers and ensure that the operations do go smoothly is that extension of operating hours at various borders. We're seeing operations of at least 24 hours of some of these borders during the operation, which will start from the 10th of December, running up until the 15th of January. We're also seeing some extension of 3 hours, either closing earlier or opening earlier to welcome that influx of travellers. But also, I think what is important, Iman, what come out of this briefing, apart from outlining how travellers should anticipate what's going to happen when they get to some of these border posts, was also the essential call for law and order in that regard. And I am joined by the Commissioner just to speak to us a little bit more about that, because that's really what most of the travellers are anticipating, that law and order at the borders. Are we ready to roll out some of the measures that you highlighted today?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Veronica. Maybe let's start by indicating that, yes, indeed, we are ready. As you will know, during this particular period, the biggest problem we have is on corridor. So that is why, as part of this planning this time around, we put a lot of effort in as far as corridor management is concerned. So we have also indicated that we do know our problematic corridors. N1 into Beitbridge, through into Zimbabwe and the continent, very much problematic. N4 corridor into Libombo, into Mozambique, very much problematic. We don't have too much problems when it comes to N8, for instance, into Lesotho, via Maseru Bridge and Sambido Fixback. So on that particular basis, for these two critical corridors, we had to make sure that we intensify our planning in as far as this part is concerned. That is why we had a very specialized deployment that will be coming through from the Cross-Border Road Transport Agency. They will be deploying officials on the ground, on the corridor, to make sure that the drivers or the travelers themselves actually comply to the rules of the road, so that as they come closer to the port, there is no chaos. Similarly, we also have the same relationship with the Road Transport Management Corporation, RTMC, to make sure that they help us in terms of corridor management. Historically, we have seen it. If you don't manage the corridor well, then the entire everything becomes chaotic, and that is why this time around we are fairly ready in as far as corridor management is concerned. In the ports, all of the processing areas are well done. We have added other processing points to make sure that we are able to bring efficiencies in terms of the movement of people and cargo out of the country, but also those that would like to enter the country.
Yeah, and of course the big question that is on many holidaymakers' mind is what is happening, the stability in Mozambique. We know that the areas around Kosi Bay as well are quite holiday favourites for South Africans, especially around New Year's. How are we making sure that what is happening in Mozambique will, of course, also ensure the safety of some of the South Africans crossing across those borders between Kosi Bay as well as the Lumbombo border post?
Yeah, as I've indicated earlier, as the Border Management Authority with the mandate to work at the ports of entry and the border law enforcement area, we don't necessarily have the mandate to pronounce broadly in terms of the issues that are happening in another jurisdiction. So that is why I had indicated that for a fuller appreciation of the stability situation in Mozambique, there might be a need to engage with the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. However, in terms of our role, we are basically able to indicate to people that Libombo port of entry remains very much volatile, and therefore we don't encourage people to laterally go around that particular area. And the reason why we are emphasizing this point is because even if there might be some few hours of stability, it can erupt at any time, and that is where our problem is. And that is why we are saying, even as we give an update now, We are operational in terms of the movement of persons. We are operational even in terms of the movement of goods. However, the Mozambican counterparts are saying they are not sure themselves what will actually happen. And that is why we say people must not necessarily get closer there per se. However, people can use other ports. Kosi Bay, as it were, that side we are told is fully stable. Up there in the north, for example, at Pafuri, as well as at Goriondo, it is fairly stable, that side. So, but in terms of the pronouncement of the broader stability inside Mozambique as the BMA, we are not able to do a full pronouncement.
Well, thank you for your time, Commissioner. Imande, just a wrap of essentially what the BMA is anticipating in terms of a number of influx, some of the measures they have put in place, but also the top 10 border posts that we're looking at, Ora Tambo International, Cape Town International Airport, and of course the big one, Beitbridge, which as Newzroom Afrika, we will definitely be stationed there during this festive season to see if in fact some of those measures are operational and if the border management is able to, of course, as well continue, given the fact that they do and are facing some resource constraints. Back to you.
Veronica, Makhoali, thank you very much. So that wraps up the BMA's plans. And if it does have an impact on you, I really urge you to go and have a look, particularly at the operating times for their various border posts.